On today's show, the circus in Vancouver continues. JT Miller, Elias Pettersson. We got Locked On Canucks here to break it all down. We've got one of the biggest comebacks in the league this year. The Sharks blowing a 5-1 lead to Nashville, and the New York Rangers stay red hot.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome inside this Wednesday, January 22nd edition of Locked On NHL. I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Ottawa Senators. With me, as always, on Wednesday, it is Mike DiStefano from Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we have local experts on the biggest stories 5 days a week. Please consider subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. We are also available on YouTube. Mikey, we got to start with Vancouver. JT Miller sounds like he went out for dinner with the boys, one last goodbye. He was going to be a healthy scratch. A trade potentially to the New York Rangers was all but closing in on completion, and then it fell apart, and now, days later, JT Miller's still a Canuck, and Vancouver lost to Buffalo last night.
Yeah, and they were up in the third period and allowed Buffalo to come back and win. And Thatcher Demko is throwing some shade, saying that the team needs to grow up. He also said he needs to play better as well. Can't cough up a third period lead. But the big story here is obviously JT Miller and Elias Pettersson and the rift that has ensued that's really sunk this team over the course of the last 6 weeks. It's been brutal what's really gone on here. And JT Miller is not performing either. He has scored in one of the last 20 games. One game. He got 2 goals in that game, but just one time has he found the back of the net in the last 20 outings. And that's not JT Miller like. This is a 40 goal scorer. A guy had over 100 points a year ago. And here he is struggling mightily in Vancouver. And he just doesn't, he looks like a shell of himself. He looks like he's very unmotivated, doesn't want to be there. And he's dragging the rest of the team down with him. And, there was that reported trade over the weekend. Apparently he was pretty close to being dealt to the Rangers. I believe Ryan Lindgren, a first-round pick, and Philip Hedl was part of the return that was supposed to come back for JT Miller. That got nixed for whatever reason. We don't know. Apparently there was some difference of opinion in the draft pick compensation in terms of protection. But ultimately, JT Miller doesn't get traded. They go out, they win that game against the Edmonton Oilers on Saturday, and you think, okay, maybe the team can pull something out here and turn things around, use that as a turning point. Now, then they go out and they lose to the Buffalo Sabres on home ice. It just keeps continuing to really cascade here in Vancouver.
And our friends over at Locked On Canucks posting last night, the Canucks have not won back-to-back games since late November. Only 6 teams in the NHL have less wins than the Vancouver Canucks. And the hits, they could keep coming because according to Locked On Canucks co-host Trevor Beggs, in a crossover edition with Trey Matthews from New Jersey Devils, he explains why the Canucks are likely going to lose whatever trade ends up happening.
With both players, they just haven't been anywhere near their peaks. And there's an argument that you're selling low on either guy. So the Canucks cannot be in a rush to make this deal because I've said it time and time again, and everydayers know the Canucks are more likely than not going to lose this trade. Now, when I think about the New Jersey Devils, and I know we'll get into it later, I mean, the New Jersey Devils have some pieces that could intrigue the Canucks in a deal. So, again, there could be a deal for one of those players, but it's just very, very rare in the NHL that you see a player of Miller or Pettersson's caliber traded, and the team trading away said player wins the deal.
Yeah, I mean, when looking at the Devils, they're running out of assets that can be used in a big-time deal. We want to see the Devils hoist a Stanley Cup in the near future, but right now, they have hit a complete wall. I think it's quite evident that a lot of the fan base wants Fitzy to either make a splashy move or just make some sort of move just to bolster the Devils just a little bit more, because this is a playoff team, but are they Stanley Cup contenders? I'm going to have to say no. They haven't proven to me that they can be a legitimate playoff threat.
So with that, and that's interesting note from Trey Matthews, host of Locked On Devils. Do you think the Devils need to be in on a JT Miller trade? Because I mean, let's start with the conversation where like it's JT Miller that's leaving, right? I don't think Elias Pettersson's going to be the guy to move.
No, I agree. It's going to end up being JT Miller, I believe, and I think they're both right. To be honest, I think Trevor is correct where he says it'll be really tough for the Canucks to win the JT Miller trade. I mean, we just noted the guy's got 2 goals his last 20 games, and that came in 1 game. So 19 times has he not found the score sheet in the last 20 games. I don't know how many teams are going to be lining up paying top dollar for that. So you are trading low on JT Miller, but there still is, what you've seen over the last 3-4 years of him in Vancouver, where he's been one of the best players in the league. Like you could argue that he's been a top 25 player in the NHL over the course of the last couple of years, and he plays the game the right way. He plays that hard-nosed, rough and tumble game. He'll get in on the forecheck. He can be a heart and soul type of player, and come playoff time, like that's the type of dude you want. So I do look at the fit with New Jersey and think, man, that's a perfect type of player for what they need. They've got the flash, they've got the skill, they've got the pizzazz, in the Bratts, in the Hughes, in the Palats of the world. They could use someone like JT Miller who's got that sandpaper. And look, I, for a long time in Toronto on Locked On Leafs, was arguing the Leafs need to trade for a guy like JT Miller. Like they did not have that type of player. They still don't really have that type of player. But Sheldon Keefe, I thought it would always love to have that type of guy. Well, who's the head coach now out in New Jersey? It is Sheldon Keefe. And I think that JT Miller, he gets a trade, new change of scenery. I think he's going to come alive. He's a shell of himself. He isn't playing anywhere near to the capability that he's able to. I don't think that it's, age falling off a cliff this quick. I think he's just disengaged and he just wants to go and wants this whole thing behind him. So yeah, I think the Canucks are probably going to, get pennies on the dollar for JT Miller. He's going to go elsewhere and probably succeed and put up a bunch of points and score and maybe take a Devils team on a deep playoff run. That's going to be sickening for Vancouver fans to see. But I just don't see any other way out of this predicament. There's no way to mend the fences now between Miller and Pettersson and the rest of this team. A trade is the only way that both JT Miller and the Canucks organization can move forward, I think.
So I'm not sure what the packages would be from Carolina or the New York Rangers, 2 teams that have clear interest in JT Miller, but the New Jersey Devils, looking at it now,
Rangers did have like that package was reported.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I don't know if that's as good as what I'm about to say, though, and it feels like the New Jersey Devils could be selling pennies on the dollar for one of their top prospects as well. Why would Simon Nemec not be the guy in a trade? And I'm not even saying this ironically, but I think the Devils might have gotten a better right shot defenseman in the second round of the 2022 draft than at second overall. Seamus Casey is putting up unreal numbers in the AHL. He's actually 1 point behind Nemec in 8 less games this season. So I think that that's a position of strength. They already have Pesce and Dougie Hamilton at the NHL level. That's your top 4. They like Jonathan Kovacevic as a third pair guy there. They've got youth on the left side with Luke Hughes. I think this could be a position where Vancouver ultimately does all right, because if Nemec develops, you could have another stud defenseman on your hands in a premium position.
Yeah, and that's what Vancouver will demand from the Devils if they're going to deal away JT Miller. And I truly believe that. They'll say, hey, Simon Nemec, like that's a player we need included in the package. I don't think that it stops there either. Although he was taken at a very high draft pick just a couple of years ago, his stock has fallen quite a bit. He's not been able to crack the roster. He's down in the American League and has been given multiple opportunities to earn a role in the NHL and hasn't quite done it. So I do believe, and, he it's been reported that he's not happy and would like a change of scenery himself. So I think that the Canucks, if they do try to play hardball with New Jersey, and if Jersey really covets JT Miller, they probably can squeeze quite a bit out of them. I think it starts with Nemec, possibly because they need to also shed some salary to make it work. Maybe a Dawson Mercer, a young forward, could also be part of the package. Like he hasn't quite turned into that bona fide, top 6 player that maybe New Jersey thought that he'd become a couple of years ago. He's kind of sitting in that middle 6th tier, but he's still young. I think it would be a player that Vancouver would be interested in. And then on top of that, do you still get that first round pick? Do you maybe get a second round pick? At that point, I guess you'll see how else things shake out to make the value work. But those would be the two players, if I'm Vancouver, I would be starting with. I think Nemec and Dawson Mercer would have to be in the deal, and then you try and squeeze as much else out of them as possible. But those are the two guys that would interest me if I was Jimmy Rutherford and the Canucks brass.
The other thing in this, and we'll move on from the conversation and hand it over to Locked On Canucks and Locked On Devils for deeper dives, but is JT Miller okay with moving to the wing? Because the Devils have Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier down the middle. Could it be like a situation we see in Ottawa and other places as well, where the Sens have Tim Stützle at center, but he's a young centerman? I'm comparing him to Jack Hughes in this situation, where JT Miller can be his winger, like Claude Giroux is for Tim Stützle, but take all his face-offs for him and be able to help him in the defensive end. I think that could be a nice little partnership between JT Miller and Jack Hughes if a trade like this goes through.
I agree. I totally agree. And we see it happen often too when players get into their 30s. Sometimes they get moved off.
Well, Marlowe did that with Matthews, didn't he?
I don't recall Marlowe playing the wing or Marlowe playing center
in San Jose, didn't he?
Was he? No, he's a winger.
I might be out of my
Jumbo.
tree.
Talking Jumbo?
No.
Oh, you might be out to lunch on that one. I think Marlowe's always played the wing, hasn't he?
No. Well, I mean, he took 510 faceoffs one year. He took 700 faceoffs another year. No, he definitely played center.
I remember him playing. Maybe because when he was in Toronto, he was on the wing, I guess. I don't know why I always remembered him as a winger.
Oh, there you go. But even in Toronto,
Jumbo.
His first year in Toronto, he took 310 faceoffs.
Yeah. I just always recall Jumbo, him, and Heatley. Wasn't that a line back in the day out in San Jose?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. They played for Team Canada too, regardless. But yeah, I think that would probably that is, I think, like, gun to my head, I would say that's the most likely scenario, most likely trade destination for JT Miller. They seem to have the package to get it done. Money wise, cap wise, there may have to be a little bit of finagling to make it work. I think he's got term left and he's making $8 million a year, which for a player of his caliber actually is not a lot of money. But there is some term there, and he's getting older and he's not played as well this season. So I'd imagine that New Jersey would be a little cautious with it.
Let us know in the comments your thoughts on the JT Miller trade rumors. On the other side, if you're going to suck, at least suck on the road. Thank goodness the Sharks weren't at home for this last night, blowing a 5-1 lead, losing 7-5 in Nashville. I'm sure that barn was rocking at Bridgestone Arena. And it was also rocking at Madison Square Garden last night. Rangers shut out the Senators 5-0. They are rolling right now, undefeated in regulation in 9 straight games. We'll hear from John Chick to wrap up the show. This is Locked On NHL, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by SelectQuote. In sports, we have a winning strategy. It's everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, the Stanley Cup Finals, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor your coverage for your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million. No medical exam required. It's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. So get a right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL. Go to SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL today. That's SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL. SelectQuote, they shop, you save. All right, welcome back. Locked On NHL. I'm Ross Levitan. Alongside Mike DiStefano, you can find us Locked On Ottawa Senators, Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs. Mikey, imagine blowing a 5-1 lead, man. That sounds awful.
Yeah, I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah, maybe not in 2021. I guess if nobody was there to see it, did it really happen?
I just the fact that like you just have to bring up the one like that's the Senators Stanley Cup since that's literally been the cups the Sens Cup since then, beating
But I thought
Toronto
we also
coming
won the
back.
cup by beating you guys 3-0 earlier this year. How many Stanley Cups do the Ottawa Senators have? We need a new rink for these banners.
Apparently every single time they beat Toronto because you don't stop talking about it.
Well, it keeps
Nothing
happening.
else to celebrate. Nothing else to
Keeps
celebrate.
happening. Oh boy. Evgeny Dadonov with 2 goals, including the winner. Go look that one up. 5-1 after 2 periods. Same thing happened last night in Nashville, except it didn't even take overtime, Mike. Like, that's where this gets out of hand. It's 4-1 for the San Jose Sharks after the first period. Then they add another. It's 5-1. It was 5-1. 5 minutes in to the second period. It stayed that way until 8 minutes left in the game when Fedor Svechkov made it 5-2. Then Justin Barron makes it 5-3. So going into the third period, it was already a game. And then Marchessault, Yossi, Blankenberg, Philip Forsberg into an empty net. 7-5 the score. Before I get your take on it, let's hear how JD Young of Locked On Sharks is taking this loss.
Apparently not even a 4-goal lead is safe for this Sharks team to blow as they were up 5-1 and lose 7-5 in regulation. I'm JD Young of Locked On Sharks in what has been a interesting season in ways to blow games. The Sharks top them all, leading 5-1, chasing UC Saros after the first period, but the Preds come storming back, and the Sharks just do not have an answer or a way to hold leads. Macklin Celebrini was brilliant in this game, but wasn't enough again as the Sharks give up 4 goals in the third period to lose this game 7-5 in regulation. We'll go through the carnage of this game on your next episode of Locked On Sharks, wherever you get podcasts. Of course, you can watch on YouTube as well.
All right. There's JD Young, Locked On Sharks. Good guy, tough game for him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's tough. And like to give up a 7 spot to the Nashville Predators, who rank 30th in the league in scoring, is absolutely a tough thing to do. Yeah, that's a tough look. And look, it's been an up and down year for San Jose. I think they haven't been as bad as maybe people thought they'd be. There's been a lot to celebrate with Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith, but ultimately a game like that just kind of undoes a lot. And I could see why our boy JD is distraught. You're up 5-1 against a team that can't score, and you lose 7-5 in reg. Like, ugh. I got to tell you, man, I was curious as to who they started in net. Like, because remember, there was an offseason trade between these two teams. Yaroslav Askarov was dealt from Nashville to San Jose. And I'm thinking to myself, was Askarov in net for that big blow? And no, it was Georgiev, who is absolutely terrible this season. Colorado fleeced the Sharks for Mackenzie Blackwood in that deal. And Askarov didn't even see the ice. Georgiev on the ice for all 6 goals against, and then the empty netter. Really, really tough night to be a San Jose Sharks fan.
Yeah, it's tough. You might want to go back and watch Celebrini highlights for that one. And San Jose, dead last in the NHL now. 50 games, 34 points. They're tied in points with Chicago, and it's a 2-horse race for last place this year. Those two teams are 7 points back of Buffalo, who's 30th in the NHL.
God, Buffalo's 30th? Jeez. That makes it worse for the Canucks last night, giving up a third period lead to Buffalo's 30th in the NHL.
Yeah, well, tied now with Nashville, but Buffalo has played one more game. You know you're in a tough sledding when we're giving you, oh, well, at least they just lose the tiebreaker for that 29th place position in the National Hockey League as I drop everything on my desk, just getting excited about that one. But it's tough times for the San Jose Sharks. But I believe that they're one more high draft pick away this year from really starting to turn things around in this franchise. My light does not want to stay up here. This is a complete travesty. People
it's
listening
turning into
like,
a gong show. A gong show here, Ross. It's like Vancouver.
Oh, yeah. Hey, JT, stay up. Stay up, buddy. Keep your head in the game here. You're good. You're good. All right. On the other side, JT Miller's former and maybe future team, the New York Rangers. Holy smokes. They were unreal last night. We'll get to that. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this NFL season, this playoff season, unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Network.
Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we have local experts on the biggest stories 5 days a week, like John Chick with Locked On New York Rangers, who breaks down a 5-0 shutout win over the Ottawa Senators.
Hey, what is going on, hockey fans? John Chick with Locked On New York Rangers. The Rangers is completing a 5-0 shutout home win over the Ottawa Senators, a game in which the Rangers just largely dominated, basically in control from start to finish. Igor Shesterkin with the shutout. And how about Igor going after Brady Tkachuk? We're definitely going to break down that entire wild sequence in the next episode of Locked On New York Rangers. But, hey, man, I mean, look, Braden Schneider was down on the ice. Brady jumped on him. Igor had to defend his guy, and it is what it is. Glad he didn't get hurt or anything like that. That would not have been good. But, you know, just nice to see a lot of Rangers collectively all kind of coming out of their offensive slumps at the same time. And something else that was awesome in this game and kind of flew under the radar a little bit, Arthur Kaliev scores twice. Now, one of them was overturned, but we saw for the first time since he's been a Ranger just that blistering shot that he has, and by all accounts, that was always his best attribute, and nice to see him take advantage of that a couple of times, and hopefully that gets him going moving forward. But we'll be discussing in the next episode of Locked On Rangers. Don't miss it.
All right, first and foremost, John Chick, one of the most likable guys going, but to say Igor Shesterkin went after Brady Tkachuk, he got buckled on the way there.
It is what it is, Ross. It is what it is.
Dude, what it is that guy flopped so hard right off the bat. He's laying in his crease in the fetal position, and then like the Undertaker comes out of his coffin, beelines at Brady, and Tkachuk goes one punch to the face, and Shesterkin buckled again. That was not a fight. That was just a guy coming in to get his bell rung, and then they get a power play out of that. New York does. The game was so far out of reach. This was just all window dressing on a garage sale of giveaways for the Ottawa Senators. But he goes out behind his net to play the puck, and he takes up the whole room. Well, Michael Amadeo's coming in full speed, so he goes past him, and they nick, Amadeo's knee nicks the back of Shesterkin's leg, and this guy must have done a 780 twirl in the air, fell down, and got another call. I have not seen such good acting since down the street when I went to Broadway last time. That was quite the show. Hey, great game, 20 save shutout for Igor Shesterkin. He's now this year made 60 saves on 61 shots against Ottawa in 2 games. But let's cut out the dramatics. I thought that was a bit of a joke.
You didn't like that, eh? Yeah. As you were saying, I went and I looked that up just to see how long he was laying on the ice for, because it was quite a lot. Literally, he for 15 seconds, he's laying there, getting the call. He's like, oh, he gets on his knees. Oh, I
thought they were going to have to get the stretcher.
And then he gets up, he just darts right for Brady
and then buckles again.
It's quite funny, but hey, I respect it. I respect it. It's part of the game, man.
I was given a hard time to Anton Forsberg for not coming down. It's 3-0. It should have been 5-0. 2 goals got called back on offsides. Your team has nothing going. At least you can show togetherness and have a little bit of hype on the plane after the game. If he beelines down the ice and says it's 6-on-5 when you jump in there, I'm coming.
You know who would have went down the ice to go?
Ray Emery.
No, not Ray. Well, yes, absolutely Ray Emery. Emery for sure would have went and beat down Igor. Levi Marilainen.
Oh,
That
buddy.
guy. That guy.
You don't often see, and again, with 2 goals called back for offside, how rare is this? Because Travis Green just saw like the team didn't have it last night, the Ottawa Senators. So he pulled Marilainen after 2 goals. That counted. It was really 4 that beat him, but 2 got called back on offsides.
Yeah.
So, anyways, big game tomorrow, man. Boston, Ottawa in Boston. That game last Saturday was sick in Ottawa. Hockey Day in Canada.
Yeah, that was a quality game. Like that had so much excitement. But like you talk about why it's going to be big, and look, the playoff picture right now for those final 2 wildcard spots is maddening. Like the East is so tight right now. It is insane. And, even if you want to even call it like really the Atlantic Division, but for those final 2 spots, there are 6 teams separated by 2 points. 6 teams, 2 points. We're talking Ottawa, Montreal, Boston, Columbus, the Rangers, and the Philadelphia Flyers, all separated by 2 points. And then really, Pittsburgh's only at 2 points back of Philly, and then Detroit's 1 point back of them.
And Tampa's only 1 point ahead of Ottawa and Montreal and Boston.
You're right. So we're looking, there's probably still 9 teams battling it out for 3 playoff spots. Yeah. Man, it's going to be a really exciting final back half of the season in the NHL.
Well, and don't look now, but all of a sudden the New Jersey Devils, who got off to such a good start, they only have 2 wins in their last 10 games. Now they're still 6 points clear of all this gong show. But if they don't figure it out in the next, by the 4 Nations, they could start being in this conversation. They've dropped from 1st to 3rd in the Metro.
That's why they're going to pick up JT Miller. Turn the season around.
Oh, JT Miller, a little slump buster. Bring in a guy on a slump to bust your slump. I like that.
Like how 2 negatives cancel out and equals a positive. Yeah. I know basic math.
Oh, my goodness. We got to give some stick taps to Montreal. They continue to find ways to win. That to me is the most shocking. Nah, probably Columbus.
No, Columbus for sure.
But Montreal, all of their analytics are like, this is not going to continue. But they just keep beating good teams.
Dude, I mean, they're getting good goaltending and they're scoring goals. I mean, that Jacob Dobish kid, he's 4-0 on the road with an 8 or 9
5-0 total.
8 percentage. It's unbelievable what this kid's been able to do. And Montembeau's played better as of late with the Toronto game aside over the weekend. Another really entertaining game as well. Toronto coming back from a 3-0 deficit. But yeah, they've been pretty solid. I mean, a lot of these teams, we talked about it for the last couple of years. Eventually, the Ottawas, the Montreals of the world, Detroit's, they were going to find a way to finally get it done and get over the hump. And it seems like this year we're finally seeing some competitive hockey. Currently, as it stands, if the playoffs started today, you've got Ottawa, Montreal as the 1-2 in the wild card spot.
Amazing. Final thoughts on today's show. Mine will be about the Winnipeg Jets, who are quietly going about their business, still atop the Central Division right there. That division is going to be very hotly contested because Colorado's they're coming. They're coming. But the Winnipeg Jets just announced that Adam Lowry, their captain, is out week to week. And you think there could be a free agent that might find his way to Manitoba.
Yeah, it sounds like Kevin Cheveldayoff was asked about it. Looks like Winnipeg native Jonathan Toews.
Guy's got a sportsplex named after him here.
Well, he could be interested in making an NHL return, and Chevy said that they're keeping tabs on him, see if he's ready to go. And Darren Dreger, TSN Hockey Insider, kind of doubled down on that report. So there's some interest from the Jets. We'll see. I mean, obviously, Toews is from the area. I don't know if he still lives there or not, but it may be a great fit because, to bring a Stanley Cup potentially to your home city is something that every kid dreams of. And this is probably the first time in Toews' career that seems possible for Winnipeg. So it may just be too perfect of a situation to pass up for both sides.
And Kevin Cheveldayoff has history with the player as well. Cheveldayoff came from the Chicago Blackhawks organization when Toews was the captain there. So it fits on multiple levels. And then on the ice, not only with Adam Lowry out, but in a perfect world, he's probably your 3rd line center. having him and Toews as like a 2A, 2B situation, I think would be really good. Right now, Vladislav Nemesnikov's been playing as the second line center before his injury that moved Lowry into that spot. So, like, that's a position of need for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yes.
And having him, even if he's a responsible and ends up being like a matchup face-off type guy, I mean, just having that leadership in the locker room and a guy who's been there, done that, won 3 Stanley Cups, won 2 Olympic gold medals. Yeah, 2010 and 2014.
Ooh, I know. 10, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
and 14.
yes.
Yeah, two-time. I mean, and it would fire up Jets fans because they're not always the free agent destination. To get a guy like him, although he hasn't played in 2 years, I think that could be big for the organization. So we'll see what happens there. Lots of rumors on today's show and some wild and wacky storylines from across the NHL. For more, go check out Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs, Locked On Ottawa Senators. Shout out to Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Ross Levitan. That is Mike DiStefano. We will be back next Wednesday, but for now, we pass it over to your Thursday edition of Locked On NHL.